Hi, I'm Izabela Wisniewska, and this is SEO in 2025.
Izabela, what's your number one SEO tip for 2025?
So my number one SEO tip is to think beyond Google and start optimizing for other search engines as well as Google and other platforms.
So what other search engines should SEOs be optimizing for?
Wow. So definitely we should start thinking Bing when we talk about search engines, because Bing, of course, Google. We know that Google is still the kind of the master there, yeah, and they own the majority of search queries. But Bing is actually climbing quite slowly, but it's climbing back, and it's getting some of the Google's percentages from the search market. If we say like in percentages, it might sound tiny, because it's like 1% or like 0.62% that they're getting slowly back. But if you think of a number of people, if you think about how many people actually searches on the internet, this number is significant, and we can't really afford to ignore this number. That's one. And the other thing is we actually had a lot of success with Bing advertising for our clients. So if you think about it, if you think Google Ads versus Bing Ads, obviously Bing has a lot less people searching, but still we had quite massive successes. So if you think about it from this perspective, then you can really have a success with organic search on Bing as well.
So why is Bing getting more popular again? Is it because of its partnership with OpenAI?
There are various voices, to be honest. That's probably one of the things. One thing that's been circling around LinkedIn quite a lot, and to be honest, I had similar experiences as well, is Google is getting less relevant than it used to be, and it throws at you a lot of Reddit, where you might not want to see Reddit for a particular search. It did happen to me quite a few times as well. It's like, I don't want to see this. This is not what I would like the Reddit opinions about. I would like to see the actual, results. And there's been a lot of discussion on that Bing is getting more and more relevant. So they did had some search updates, I think, about 2 years ago. And since then, they've been climbing, as I said, very slowly, and it's not going to happen overnight. But I don't think it's something that we can afford to miss, basically.
So how different is optimizing for Bing?
The thing is, it's not that different. There are some small things that Bing focuses more on and Google focuses less, or vice versa. But it's not like we would have to create completely two different websites to optimize for one or the other. But the thing is, I've noticed that we stopped paying attention to Bing completely. Like, I remember when I've started, which was in 2013, we still had the Google ranking and we had Bing ranking, and we did pay attention to it. Whereas now you don't even hear about Bing. Whereas, as I said, I think there's real potential. And the other thing is that some people, you have to think about different audiences as well, because some people, like when they're at work, for example, in some countries, they are kind of forced to use Bing because they can't use Chrome. So if you think about it from this perspective as well, you're opening yourself to a different audience completely that you might not maybe get in front if you just solely focus on Google.
Okay, so Google and other search engines. And what is a search engine nowadays? I mean, for instance, is social discovery something that SEO should be optimizing for as well?
That's the thing. So as I said, the search engines and different platforms as well, because exactly as you said, David, search engine is not only Google or Bing these days. Obviously, in different countries, we've got different search engines. So there's also Yahoo, there's Yandex, for example, as well. But apart from the platforms that are almost purely search engines, we've got socials, we've got Facebook, we've got TikTok, we've got Instagram, we've got YouTube. One of the biggest search engines as well is YouTube. And depending on what sort of content you want to rank with and what sort of business you're with or your industry you're in, you should be focusing on some of them as well as the general search engines. So there have been very interesting talks a few years back already about Instagram optimization, about YouTube optimization. All of them, form a channel or should form a part of our marketing strategy, really. As I said, depending on which business you're in, because, for example, if you've got a lot of video content that you can show and you are in a position to create a lot of video content, and your audience hangs out on YouTube, definitely go for YouTube. Don't forget about YouTube. If you're targeting Gen Z, let's say, and majority of your target audience hangs out on TikTok, remember about TikTok, and it's not just post content and forget about it. Just, cough it out and it's there. But think about it, add it to your strategy. Think about optimizing for these other platforms as well. And the other thing, obviously, that we can't forget and we can't afford to miss and not mention is optimizing for AI. That's been an emerging trend. And I don't know how it's going to play out, but it's definitely something that we should keep an eye on, think about and see how it's going to work. From my personal experience as a client, as a searcher, not as a search engine specialist, I've noticed a trend in my kind of mind that when I get the results from the generative AI, depending on what I'm searching for, some of them I do get into, and some of them are like, no, that's not, I don't trust them. I want to go into the actual article, see who wrote it and, read about it. But, this might change with time. In some recipes comes to my mind for some reason. I would be willing to try if even AI showed me a recipe. Okay, let's try it. The worst case scenario is just not going to work. All right. So, thinking about your industry and what sort of content you're serving, you should really be thinking about these other opportunities that you have, not just Google. Don't forget about Google. Don't get me wrong. Google is still obviously the massive player and the biggest player. But I don't think we can afford to miss the smaller players anymore.
It's interesting what you're saying about trust there with AI as well, because what's the worst thing that can happen if you cook a dish from a recipe that you find in AI? But if you ask AI, I'm not feeling very well, what tablet should I take? That's probably not something that you trust. Yeah.
That's probably exactly. That's why I said it depends on the type of the content. But to make it even more interesting, it was a few years back, so it could have changed. But maybe that was 2021. There was a talk on Brighton SEO, and I think I've mentioned that on one of our previous chats, Dave. And someone done a test about what would you trust AI with. And there was a Netflix recommendations, and there were health recommendations or health, so something related to health. And apparently, a smaller percentage of people would trust AI about Netflix than about health, which is a bit scary, but it's just something to think about. As I said, if for example, I would rather trust it with Netflix recommendation 100%. So, with AI, it really depends on what sort of subject you're into, in my opinion, and you're talking about. As I've mentioned, in my opinion, with Netflix recommendation, let's say, it could be something you should really look into. But definitely keep an eye on it and see how it rolls, so you don't miss it. Basically, if it hits in the future.
If it hits in the future, okay. You also mentioned the importance of optimizing for different social platforms as well. Yes. 10 years ago or so, the advice was be everywhere. I don't think that's great advice everywhere, certainly with the same content now, because each platform is unique in terms of its audience and its content style, its consumption habits. How do you know if your audience is on YouTube or TikTok or somewhere else, and that's the platform you should be aiming for?
I think that's actually a really important, really good question. So you have to really know your audience first, and you have to understand who your audience is, who are you targeting. And I think that's something you could turn back to some, as I like to call them, old-fashioned marketing techniques, or even offline marketing techniques, with some personas and even focus groups to really understand who you're trying to sell to, basically. And then based on that, baby steps, analyze where your target audience hangs out the most. What do they like? What type of content they like to consume as well? Because, some audiences might be more into videos. Some audiences might be more into just reading a blog post. So start from there. And this is something that I think many of us miss, maybe because of budgets, maybe because of time. We kind of jump over that. But this is something that I think every brand and every marketing specialist should really think about and start from, to understand who you're targeting, to then find out where do they hang out, what do they like, what sort of content they like, and then take it from there. So I'm going to reward what you said at the beginning, that the advice was be everywhere. And I'm going to say be where your target audience wants you to be and where your target audience hangs out.
Brilliant. Okay. And in terms of, if you've done the research in terms of determining who your target audience is, you've done your personas, you know who you want to be talking to, is there somewhere that you recommend going to online to determine where to select which platform to go for. I mean, for instance, maybe something like SparkToro springs to mind. I'm not sure if you've used that platform at all before, or maybe you've got another recommendation that you can use to actually determine what platform to use.
I haven't used that platform. I think it will depend, because some of us might be, more familiar. Talk to your client, I would say as well, because I'm from marketing agency perspective, and from I work with a few different clients and different brands. So I would say talk to your client definitely and involve them in the process, because they should be the people who really know who they're selling to. And then in order to determine where your target audience hangs out, it might be a bit of try and error. It might be. But I can't recommend any specific platform. Nothing really comes to mind at the moment. But I'm sure there are so many platforms on the internet now that you can use, or try to just observe and see, because we use, like, majority of us uses Facebook now and like Instagram, and majority of brands are there as well. Observe where you've got the most engagement, where use analytics, use platforms like Microsoft Clarity. It's a really good platform as well, quite new. But they've got a lot of metrics where you can, if you put it all together, you're going to be able to determine, at least to some extent, where is the most kind of engagement going on, and then take it from there. That's what I would say.
So you talk about engagement. Is that the most important metric for social SEO? Because if you're optimizing for other platforms, often people don't come off those platforms to visit your website. So you have to measure, I guess, content consumption rates on those platforms to determine if what you're doing is successful.
I would say that's one of the most important things, because many of us many people looks at likes, for example, on Facebook, or like follows. But I would say engagement, and like if you can actually spark this engagement and get people like talking, going, and interacting with your content, I would say that's one of the most important things, because, many people just like something and forget about it. And it's just, it's there. They never look at the content again. With time, it probably won't even appear on their timeline, but they still like your page, they're still there. So the number is high, and then the engagement is close to zero, right? So I would say this is one of the most important factors. Obviously, it might depend slightly on your timing in the game, let's say, because if you're just starting, then yes, you need follows, you need people to actually see your content first. But then do focus on engagement, definitely, and do focus on getting this. Social is a bit different than Google and than the general search engines, the traditional, let's call it. It's more about like a community and the social vibe and engagement, the conversations that you can spark. So I would say it's definitely something that you can't afford to miss, and it's one of the most important things when it comes to socials.
And app optimization, is that a job for SEOs as well?
I'm gonna reply as an SEO. It depends. So yes, you can. So I've got a bit of experience with app optimization as well. So yes, you can definitely. It's gonna be helpful if you're an SEO, because it does. I remember someone called it a Wild West back in the day, and SEO used to be a Wild West like 10 or 15 years ago. And now ASO kind of taken the place. So it's like everything is a bit all over the place, and it's a bit messy, and we're not quite sure, what exactly is going to work and things like that. But the general idea, right? You're trying to achieve similar thing. You're trying to get your app to rank. So it's definitely going to be helpful. Is it a job for SEOs? At the moment, I would say generally it is, at least in my kind of circle from my experience. However, it might, once or if it grows, I think it will grow. And to be completely honest with you, I'm quite surprised it didn't grow more by now, because everything is an app. Everything has an app. You've got thousands of apps, and you've got, hundreds on your phone sometimes. But once it does, I think we might see the distinction like we see now between technical SEO and on-page SEO, and people specializing in this specific different, areas. I think we might see that we will have people only specializing in ASO, for example. Currently, I've seen quite a few SEOs doing ASO as well, and they, doing a great job with it.
If an SEO is struggling for time, what should they stop doing right now so they can spend more time doing what you suggest in 2025?
This is a very good question, David, asking me after 6 weeks of school holidays, which actually felt like a level 5 of Jumanji. But so I'm not going to tell you what you should stop doing. I'm going to tell you what you should start doing. So I've learned quite a lot of productivity tips over the 6 weeks. So you can start using, I've recently came back to using a Pomodoro technique. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it's been popular back in the day. So it's basically you set up a timer. It usually is 25 minutes. I prefer 30 minutes. And then you focus purely on that. Purely on the task at hand. And, no emails, no distractions, no phone calls, no socials, no checking Facebook on your phone. And you're just doing your task. And then you've got 5 minutes break. And you've got a couple of circles like that. And believe me, trust me, it might sound not right, but you can really do a lot more with this, with this setup than the general, checking your phone, checking your email, answering an email, because you're getting out of the task. And then it takes you some time to get back in it. So definitely this. From my perspective as well, if you're a morning person, try shifting your work hours a little bit. Because when you start even an hour early and it's quiet and empty and no one wants anything from you, then this is a time where you really can, get into the work and actually do a lot more in this hour than you do in the first hour of the office hours, let's say, when, there are questions and phone calls and emails that can't afford to be missed. So I would say start doing that. It's not about stop doing something, start working a bit more efficiently. That's what I would say.
Well, maybe stop working 9 to 5 and start working 7 till 1 and then a couple of hours later on in the evening, and that could be more effective.
If you can afford doing that, I think that's a really good. With me, I think that's what I'm going to start doing now. But I can have flexible working hours. Some offices might require you to work 9 to 5, but if they don't, 100%. If you're a morning person, it might be a lot better for you to work, let's say, 7 till 1, as you said, or even 6 till, 12, for example. So it can really be a game changer.
Izabela Wisniewska is a director at Creatos Media, and you can find her over at creatosmedia.co.uk. Izabela, thanks so much for being part of SEO in 2025.
Thank you.
I've been your host, David Bain. Get your copy of SEO in 2025, the book, over at SEOin2025.com.